Good evening. I'm Bob Haas, and this is my final presentation for MBA536. I chose to present on Wegmans, a company for which I worked from 2003 to 2005. Wegmans is one of the private companies that Firms of Endearment, the book by Raj Sisodia, Jag Sheth, and David Wolf wrote about in their excellent book. With that brief intro behind us, let's first take a look at where we're heading here over these next 15 to 20 minutes. We'll first look at what is a firm of endearment, give a brief Wegman or Wegmans history and values. Employee focus, that's really what it's all about for Wegmans. They start there and really put a great deal of focus on their employees. But they also are fair across all of their stakeholders, and we'll touch on all of that. We'll look at the latest facts and figures sort of towards the tail end and then tie that all into Wegmans being, I think, on very solid footing, a firm of endearment. What is a firm of endearment? This is sort of my own summary, if you will. It's a business built on love and care. It's a business built with passion and purpose. A business with a balanced approach that benefits all stakeholders, not just the investors. That's sort of that idea down below with the shareholder and the table full of all of the stakeholders sort of being a greater than just the shareholder approach, which I certainly don't believe more than I did coming into this class for sure. And it's a business that makes the world a better place. The financial success of these companies sort of speaks for themselves. We see that whether over 10 years or 15 years, these firms of endearment have far outperformed the S&P 500 for one, but even the companies that Jim Collins in his Good to Great Companies book had identified. That's a book that I had read a number of years back and thought it was a good book for sure. But here we learn that by doing things really truly the right way and built around love and care, that we can, especially over the long term, see a great deal more success yet. And this image, if you're looking for it, is from the Firms of Endearment website. And most of my slides here through this slide deck will have some links down below if you care to dig deeper into some of the source data. So for Wegmans, call them... For me, I believe they were an early entry into this age of transcendence concept that was brought about in the Firms of Endearment text. The text basically said that this started around 1960 when things really got going in that fashion. Robert Wegman, who followed John and Walter Wegman, when Robert Wegman was put as president in 1950, he made some pretty significant changes, including raising salaries, bringing about a broad program of benefits, and even introducing an employee profit sharing plan, with the goal to build the finest supermarket chain in the land, even if he knew, even at that early stage, that they wouldn't necessarily be the fastest growing company. They did not almost want to be the fastest growing company, and we'll get into a little bit of that a little bit later with their sort of slow approach to new stores. And making sure that their message and their culture really shines through no matter where these stores exist. This company is certainly a family company. Danny Wegman joined the company all the way back in 1964. He's your current CEO. Robert Wegman unfortunately passed in the mid-2000s, and that point is when Danny became CEO. And there's more behind Danny. That'll show a slide of that later as well. These are the ingredients for success at Wegmans. We look at this and some of these things say, yeah, well, duh, these should be core values anywhere. But they really are quite powerful, especially as you go down through them. They all really connect well. It's about caring and love. It's about high standards. It's about making a difference in everything that they do and in every community we serve. It's about respect. We respect and listen to our people. And empowerment. We empower our people to make decisions that improve their work and benefit our customers and our company. We've already, just in that bit, hit on a lot of these key stakeholder groups that I think is certainly quite important. This, I mentioned having worked here previously. This was really my first take or taste, I guess, of this concept of empowerment. These values were really thrown at us as just onboarding from day one. They were posted in the break rooms, in the back rooms, and it was really all about creating a sustainable culture across everyone and every store. And I think that really does shine through. So I'm going to actually switch here briefly to a video that I found during my research that I think was quite powerful. I think we're looking at some green onions here, but that's not really what this is all about. This is about making you feel good. And this video, about 2 to 2.5 minutes here, really does, I believe, make you feel good about Wegmans and what they're doing at the customer level and at the employee level. Let's watch. Yeah, this video really just kind of connected with me. Do what you love, love what you do, I think is what the guy at the end there said. But really, really strong, powerful message, and lots of those employees there certainly smiling throughout that. So this is what Wegmans believes for their stakeholder group, the employees. At Wegmans, we believe good people working towards a common goal can accomplish anything they set out to do, and so on. We also believe we can achieve our goal only if we fulfill the needs of our own people. And that's really important and quite a powerful message as it relates to employees. And with that, it's no surprise that they continually being named to Fortune magazine's 100 best companies to work for. In 2016, they were fourth. That's not been their highest ranking. They were first, and I'll toot my own horn just a little bit here. That was one of the years that I worked there, though I'm sure I had very, very little to do with that as just a young college student. First place in 2005, and I think probably almost as important or more important than being in this top handful is that they've been consistently on this list since its inception in 1998. Really shows a strong and steady approach to treating their employees right. They have many programs. One of the ones I highlighted here was the scholarship program because I think it's fairly strong, $4.5 million annually to their employees for enhancing their education, and about 105 million since the program's inception. So with all of that, it's really no surprise. if you look at, and I did some of this in my research that I didn't include on the slide deck here, but you look at a website like Indeed.com where you can find a lot of these employee reviews. This isn't fluff. This is real. And having worked here, I've sort of lived this firsthand, and they truly are wonderful to their employees. And by being wonderful to their employees, a lot of that translates to their customers as well. Food you feel good about, I think, is a pretty strong branding across a lot of their products. It's about 2,000 of their products that are preservative free, free of artificial colors. Their meats that are antibiotic free, no high fructose corn syrup, things like that that really bring about this sort of idea of the natural foods. Again, it's not just a few, it's a lot of product. They also do things like offering family packs, things that you would typically see in more like a Costco or a Sam's Club. They have that at Wegmans, and they have it to serve a purpose to hopefully provide good value. These things save about 30% on average by going with the family packs, and they want to cater to that type of consumer. They also offer consistently low prices. One of the reasons they're able to do that is because they have an extensive private label stock, and with that, it's good quality food, but at a much lower rate than some of the name brands that you'd have to buy elsewhere. So they really are looking out for their customers, trying to provide them with a tremendous experience with the choices, the experiential component. You walk into a store, you automatically see all these smiling faces. Rarely see the upset type employees at a store like Wegmans, and it makes you feel good as you walk through that store. It's not just the food, it's about the experience. And they seem to really hit home with their customers to the point where they were named the favorite retail grocer in 2016 by Market Force Information. This is the chart here on the left. We see Wegmans is number one ahead of Publix and ahead of Trader Joe's. Trader Joe's had owned that top spot for the last few years. Last year, Wegmans was quite close, but they actually fell short on the number of votes needed to qualify. But this goes back a long time, too. It's nice to see this sort of thing, obviously. But we look back even as far as 1987, and we see Fortune magazine awarding them best in customer service. So this is that type of thing, again, that really goes throughout the decades and continues to build on that really strong culture that began all the way back in 1916 and has stayed with the family ever since. The next stakeholder group that we'll look at briefly here is partners and suppliers. The big thing here is striving for long-term partnerships with suppliers. There's quoted and referenced seventh generation type suppliers of produce in some of their stores. The website actually has these neat graphics. I picked the one for Maryland, obviously. Here we are. They have these by state, though, of the different types of vegetables or fruits that they source from local producers. The other thing that they go, I think, a little bit beyond what you might typically expect of a company of their size is to sponsor food safety training. They want their producers to be sort of up to snuff, if you will, in making sure that they follow all the correct guidelines. And for some producers, that might be too costly. So Wegmans jumps in and sort of helps that out. And you'll see I have a quote here from Colleen Wegman, the current president. But you see this type of thing with almost all stakeholder groups that they truly do value and appreciate all of their stakeholders. Society, certainly, or community here, another key stakeholder group. Things like food bank donations. They started doing these sort of before it was hip, if you will, all the way back into the 1970s, and the amount of food is quite literally tons, millions of pounds, in fact, just in 2014 alone, 13.5 million to be exact, or 337 tractor trailer loads in 2014 alone. And if you look to their website and to a lot of the material there, you'll see that this is not just all going to some one place in each community. Their website will list several of the food banks that they work with in each of their locations, and this is really helping to serve thousands and thousands of people every year get food that they otherwise could not. Things like United Way donations are another way that they really kind of go beyond what might typically be expected. As a poor college student, for instance, way back in 2004 or so, 2003, 2004 when I started there, one of the things that was first asked of me was I willing to donate a portion of my paycheck to United Way, and that it was a pretty common thing to do. So I said sure. And the way that that makes you feel, even as someone without a whole lot of money at that point, still don't. But by donating, you feel this sense of community and sense of strength that you're doing something good. And that's something that even in 1988, when they first started this, they raised over $1 million just from their employees. And they continue to do this sort of thing today. And the other thing that I thought is pretty unique is this early integration into new communities. When they're about to open a new store, in this case, the next one coming is Charlottesville, Virginia, they get there early and get there often. And work with the community, leaders and local governments to really make sure that when they get there, they're not just going there for business, but they're going there to truly better the community around them. They really hit home with that. If you remember when Frederick's store opened, there was countless people waiting in line outside just to get in for the very first time. The type of people that are looking for jobs here, you see thousands of applications for every 10 or so full-time positions. It's just lots of people realize that this is a good thing for the community and want to be a part of it. And the people stay there too. That's kind of going back to the employee bit, but they really do stick around. Looking at this next idea of social responsibility and sustainability, just a couple of key things here. I won't read this whole mission statement, but I do believe it's quite powerful. They mention things like the effects of the lives of their children and grandchildren. They know there's no simple solutions, but know that even these little steps can make a huge difference. And the quote that they reference on this part of their website is quite awesome. We do not inherit the earth from our ancestors, we borrow it from our children. So they really do think that way. And here's some of their priority focus areas. Carbon footprint wise, you see them replacing all of their old light bulbs to CFL bulbs in their remodeled stores, their new stores, their distribution centers. They're going about putting their distribution centers in locations where it cuts down on fuel type costs and what that does for the environment. There's this report card section that in this instance I picked one here that says about cardboard being recycled, but there's an awful lot of things that they do like that. Food waste getting composted, the amount of plastic bags that are recycled each year. These things are astonishing numbers. So they really do have a big focus on sustainability as well. Our next stakeholder group is the investors. Here it's pretty straightforward. This is a publicly owned company and it's been that way for 100 years now. Danny Wegman is currently CEO. Colleen Wegman, his daughter, is president, and his other daughter, Nicole, is senior vice president. So you see a scenario here where it's going to likely stay in the Wegman family for this foreseeable future. And without the pressures of these other shareholders that you typically see in a public company, it can really stay all about that same type of culture that has already existed for 100 years, carrying on hopefully for the next 100 years as Wegmans continues to expand and grow within the communities that they are currently in and reach out into more communities and hopefully bring more of their positive influences elsewhere too. So what does success at Wegmans look like? This is the sort of latest facts and figures. They're a $7.9 billion company as of 2015. They have over 46,000 employees, so they're affecting a lot of lives that way, certainly. They only have 91 stores. 4 more are planned and announced, but there are others in the works. And I think I mentioned earlier, but every year they get thousands of requests from citizens in various locations wanting Wegmans to move to their place. And if that's not a sign of a strong company, I'm not sure what is. Fourth on Fortune's Best Places to Work list. I already talked to them about that. They're the favorite grocer in America per Market Force information. And they hold the top spot as of 2015 for corporate reputation. All of this type of information can be found on their website, certainly. And I would bet and be willing to believe that they focus on that latter half of this list even perhaps more than they do the top half, as far as how much they believe that by doing things right, that top half kind of comes about naturally. Being able to make $8 billion a year and have all of these stores. It comes about through having all of these tremendous employees and ending up at the top of all of these impressive lists. So with that all said, I sort of mix it all together here to steal a sort of a pun, if you will. Wegmans does it right, and I identify it as treating their employees right. It's also about providing a great customer experience. It's about valuing their partners. It's about becoming wonderfully ingrained in local communities. It's about using socially responsible and sustainable methods. It is not about being driven solely by the dollar. And that's something that sometimes with shareholder-driven companies, unfortunately, what can sometimes happen. It is all about love and care. Wegmans is a firm of endearment. I mentioned earlier there are some of my sources on the slides as I went through. Here's some of the others that I used in my research in coming up with this slide deck ultimately. With that, I thank you for your attention. I hope you enjoyed my work, and I hope we can all find ways in the future to lead our companies to being firms of endearment. Thank you. Good night.